Thank you to the Sovereignty Movement for giving me a chance to speak about something so important today. And indeed, we are living in a great time. We are living in a great time. We're living in a time when the Jewish people have come back home after 2,000 years. God has brought us back to the land of Israel. Not only has He brought us back, but the Hebrew language has been revived, which is a miracle in itself. We have a fabulous army that has won miraculous wars.
Yes.
We have an economy. Just look around at the cars, look around at our government office buildings here. We have a blessed economy. That's another miracle. In 1948, Israel declared independence, and immediately we fought a war for survival. We won that war. I oftentimes ask people, did we win or lose the War of Independence? Did we win or lose? We won because, you see, we have independence, but we lost the heartland to an enemy, a created country called Jordan, which was British funded, British led, British trained, and they took away the heartland of the Jewish people, Yehuda and Shimon. We lost the heartland in 1948. But only a few years later, we had another amazing war, which was the Six-Day War. In the Six-Day War, we pushed back on the enemies of Israel, and we regained the biblical heartland. We pushed back on Jordan. Immediately, the government of Israel recognized the greatness of that event, and they annexed. Or really, that's not the right word. Nobody wants to say annexation. That's not the right word, because it's not annexed. You can't annex Jerusalem. The Jewish people cannot annex Jerusalem. That's a joke. We immediately asserted sovereignty, Israeli law, on all of Jerusalem. However, what about the other holy cities? You know, my friends, there are 7 holy cities. And I speak now also to our Christian friends, our Bible-loving friends all over the world. There are really 7 holy cities in the heartland of Israel. They start from the south, Beersheba, up to Hebron, that's where the fathers and the mothers are buried, up to Beit Lechem, also known as Beit Lechem Ephrata, which is where King David was born. This is where Ruth came to. The book of Ruth took place there. Then, of course, the heart of it all, Jerusalem, where 2 commonwealths were led from. The capital of 2 commonwealths, and now a 3rd commonwealth. Where Abraham almost sacrificed his son Isaac, where 2 temples stood. That's Yerushalayim, the heart of it all. And then in Samaria, Bethel, or Beit El. That's the place where Jacob had his dream of the ladder. Shiloh, where the tabernacle stood for so long, and where Hannah had prayed for Samuel, and that's where he was conceived, kind of spiritually. And finally, Shechem, what the Arabs call Nablus, which is actually a Roman word, Neapolis, like in America, Annapolis. 7 holy cities: Beersheba, Hebron, Beit Lechem, Yerushalayim, Beit El, Shiloh, Shechem. These, sadly, were not immediately, most of them, Beersheba, yes, Jerusalem, yes, but the other cities were left not under full Israeli sovereignty. On the 14th of December, 1981, Menachem Begin, the Prime Minister of Israel, passed the Golan Heights Law. He extended Israeli law, jurisdiction, and administration to the Golan Heights. This was 38 years before recognition. Before recognition. He didn't wait for America to recognize. He wasn't saying, hey, are you with me? Are you with me? He said, the Golan Heights is ours. And so he made that law. And the world liked it, didn't like it. He didn't care. Later they liked it. But at that time, they didn't like it that much. Throughout this time, after the Six-Day War, Israel has been hounded by her enemies. We've had a lot more wars. And the wars were physical wars. That's one kind of war. And another war was a war to delegitimize Israel. We have fought that war from the Six-Day War and on. We have actually not finished the Six-Day War. We keep on fighting it for the right to live in these biblical places. And we've had the Yom Kippur War and the Lebanon War. We had other physical wars. But we've also fought another war, which is the delegitimization war. The narrative war. The war to say that Israel is not legitimate. And we fought that battle. We fought that battle at the UN. And we fought it with international organizations like BDS and UNESCO and UNRWA and all these orgs that are out there doing good, trying to take away the Jewish people's heartland. We have fought these wars since the Six-Day War for 50 years. And then suddenly, another miracle took place. On January 20th, 2017, President Donald Trump was inaugurated. This president was to prove to be Israel's greatest ally historically in the White House. That's right. President Trump has been Israel's greatest historical ally. What has he done? Is he just a nice guy that likes Israel? No. He took real steps, real courageous steps. He reversed the dreaded Iran nuclear deal, which was going to empower our greatest enemy with nuclear weapons to wipe us out. He recognized, after 38 years, the Golan Heights as sovereign Israel. He finally moved the embassy to Jerusalem, something that we've been fighting for 22 years we fought, to pass a law, our law, American law. We fought, and every president promised. And then came President Trump, and he did it. That's not all. Those are the famous things, but there's even a few more. In Hebron, we had a little problem. There was an international organization called UNESCO. They're in charge of World Heritage Sites. And they decided that the tomb of the fathers and mothers, a burial place 3,800 years old, with a building 2,000 years old, a Jewish site par excellence, bona fide. You can't argue with this one. Archaeology, history, they all know that this is a Jewish site. And yet UNESCO decided that the tomb of the Jewish fathers and mothers is actually a Palestinian World Heritage Site. President Trump said, enough is enough. And he didn't say, no, UNESCO. He just walked out. And I remember I was sitting at AIPAC when U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, announced that they're leaving UNESCO because of the anti-Hebron decision. And finally, one of the happiest days of my whole life, I got married. I have children, thank God. These are all great days. And yet, one of the happiest days of my life, I was sitting in a Florida airport when I heard Secretary of State Pompeo make a declaration that the United States does no longer see Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria as de facto illegal, as per se illegal. In other words, that's all Diplo talk. In other words, the United States sees Jewish communities in the heartland, the biblical heartland, as legal. And I was dancing at that airport. People thought I was crazy, almost got arrested, because of the overwhelming joy that I had, that suf, as we say in Israel, that finally our rights, our essential rights, our simple rights, our basic rights, our natural rights, our religious rights, our historical rights, our international law rights were being recognized. What a great moment that was, the Pompeo Doctrine. And guess what? There are still more great moments to go. We have now arrived at yet another great moment. The moment of the assertion of Israeli sovereignty in Judea and Samaria. The biblical mountains running down the heart of the country and the Jordan Valley. Meaning to say, I just want everybody to know, when we say Judea and Samaria, it equals West Bank, equals the biblical heartland, equals the areas that hug Jerusalem to the north and to the south. That's the mountain range and the Jordan Valley. Finally, the United States has signaled Israel, go ahead and annex. Oh, sorry, wrong word. Go ahead and make sovereignty. Assert. By the way, I came up with a new word because to annex is a verb, and we don't have a verb to sovereign. So I came up with a new word, to sovereignize. Go ahead, sovereignize. Sovereignize the land. Do it. We're with you. Indeed, this is a great moment, an opportunity that cannot be missed. However, friends, with this great moment also came the deal of the century, which contained language about a Palestinian state and, quote, the legitimate right of Palestinians for self-determination in this land. I am here to say that no other people have any right for self-determination on our land. Let's just make that so clear. Nope, it's not if they're nice or if they're not nice, if they're Canada or Switzerland. It's not their land. Nobody can assert any claim on this land. It's our land. And not because we want peace, don't want peace, want to give it, no, don't want to give it. We don't even have any right to give it away. It's not their land. It's not even our land. It's our forefathers and mothers' land. It's our children's land. It's God's land. And we have no right to give it away. And this language within the deal of the century is problematic. And so is the conceptual map that was an addendum to the deal of the century. we simply cannot accept it. We cannot accept the idea that any other peoples have a right for self-determination on our land. That statement is false, and we cannot accept it. Okay, some words of recommendation. Okay, I have the great honor of serving as the spokesman for the Jewish community of Hebron, and that's a great position. But still, with humility, I say I have some recommendations for President Trump and for our leadership, and even for the Arabs. First thing I want to say, there's been a lot of machloket. That's right. There's a lot of people that are with the sovereignty movement. By the way, I just want to say that the sovereignty movement, started by Yehudi Katzover and Nadia Matar, coined the term sovereignty. It coined that term. And today we're all talking about it. That's been a great victory. I want to say something directly to President Trump, something that the national camp has not made it clear. I want to clarify something. President Trump, please do not see Israel's national camp as ungrateful in any way to you. I want you to know that. Do not understand that this rally or other things that you're hearing in the media is in any way ungrateful. Please understand that we have been fighting this war of ideas for a long time before you came on the scene. We've been against the Palestinian state for the last 50 years, maybe even the last 100 years. We've been fighting this battle. So don't take it personally. In fact, it was you, President Trump, who fought against accepted bad ideas. You said no more illegal immigration from Mexico. I'm going to stop it. Right. You said no more theft and unfair trade practices from China. I'm going to stop it. You went against the UN. You went against big things. And to us, that's the fight we're having. Somebody's trying to immigrate into our land and take it over. Somebody's trying to, they have a new intellectual property war against us. They're trying to say that we're not the owners of this land, that we're not legitimate, that it's Palestine and not Israel. We've been fighting this war for 100 years. So please, President Trump, don't take it personally. We say the same as you. No illegal takeover. No more erosion of our narrative. In fact, we are inspired by your courage. In simple terms, we are pro-Trump. We are pro-sovereignty, but against any semblance of a seditious idea to give away our land to any other sovereign. For our leaders, I have a few words as well. We're right across here from the Prime Minister's office, and so I think if I speak loud enough, you'll hear me. Our leadership, we have a Prime Minister and a kind of sub-Prime Minister, so I don't know who to address. I'm addressing them all. And also to all of the nation of Israel. We have an opportunity to assert Israeli law on the Jordan Valley and the Jewish communities. Do it now. Do it now.
That's amazing.
One of the problems, though, that has happened through this whole process is that we've a little bit started looking like a puppet state. A little bit started looking like we're constantly looking back to see if America is with us. That is not the way a sovereign behaves. If you believe that we're to be sovereign, act like a sovereign. And if you assert sovereignty in the land of Israel, the Americans and other people, they'll get right behind you. They'll see your courage. They'll be inspired by it. So don't act like I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but sometimes, like a dog walks ahead of you and he looks behind to see where the master is. Don't act that way. Act forthrightly, clearly. Assert sovereignty now, and people will respect you. Second thing, it would be remiss of me not to mention the Lubavitcher Rebbe at this important gathering. Listen to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He had a piece of advice. Don't make a lot of announcements.
Do it.
And tell the world exactly what you're planning to do very early so that they could all get ready to make a big fight and tell you that you have no right to annex, quote unquote. Don't talk so much. Get it done, and you can announce afterwards. Something that has happened here is that we've been talking a lot about sovereignty. We're debating, yes, no, where. It's not the way to do it. We got too many enemies to give them time to prepare. Don't talk a lot. What is the line? If you came to shoot, shoot. Don't talk.
When you have to shoot, shoot. Don't talk.
There's something psychologically deep that everybody has to understand. If you say, and this is what it says in the Deal of the Century, that if the Arabs behave a certain way, if they're peace-loving, and they stop paying terrorists, and they do all these things that are good guy things, they become Canada, quote-unquote, then they can have a state. So everybody says, you see, we show them that they have to behave like good neighbors, and then everything is going to be okay. No. If you say that, what you're actually saying is, it's your land. If you behave nice, I'll give it to you because you deserve it. I say they can behave as nice as they want. They can and they should behave nice. And they shouldn't pay terrorists. But it's not their land. It'll never be their land, no matter how they behave. And that's something that we have to say clearly. Now I'm going to say something which is a little bit the opposite, maybe a little surprising to the group here. I don't like the idea of trying to trick the Arabs. I don't like them to be put in a position, they'll fail. They'll never meet these demands. And then, the whole thing will be dead. That is not the way to lead. That is not transparent. That is not the way a sovereign nation behaves. The opposite. Many of our Arab neighbors can be our allies and friends. We need to speak to them with clarity. Clarity. Tell them what we're gonna... That's right, speak to them with pride and tell them, if you behave in our country, if you follow our laws, if you respect our sovereignty, you will have a decent life with upward mobility. And if you fight us and have jihad in this land, you will find a way out of here, one way or another. Speak that way clearly to them, and you will gain their respect. Tell them, we are a tribe like yours. We have rules like tribes like you do. This is our tribal lands. Don't walk into our tribal lands and try to take it over. And they will respect you. They will respect you. Instead, this is such a trick. You see, do all these things, and if you're good, then you're going to get the land. But we know you're not going to do it. Wink, wink. That's not leadership. By the way, just on a Torah level, this is the difference between Jacob and Israel. Jacob and Israel. Jacob is when we live in the diaspora, when we live out in exile, we have to be clever. We have to do clever things to make our life. In Israel, when you're the sovereign, you're not clever. You're Yisrael. Yashar El. Be straight. Be clear. Don't play around. Don't play a game to make the other person fall. Don't do it that way. Be clear. Tell them what you want. Respect them as people. And indeed, the Arabs that want to live a decent life with us will be respected. They will get respect, and they will get also what I always say, which is barakah, which is blessing. Blessing in Arabic. Last thing to our Israeli leaders. Guys.
Yes. And girls.
And gals.
Yes.
There is no way to talk a lot about sovereignty if you can't be sovereign in the Negev and in the Galil. If you allow Bedouins to take over swaths of land, if you allow them to harass our army and to steal material, if you allow in the Galil a massive land takeover, if you can't control a population, if you can't police and control a population within your land, don't talk to me gavoa gavoa, don't talk to me high about sovereignty. Learn to be tough and sovereign in your land that you already have.
Right.
That's the way we have to be in the land that we control, and certainly, when with God's help, we'll be sovereign in Judea and Samaria and in the Jordan Valley. We have to assert that sovereignty strongly. We can't allow people to walk all over us. In the Middle East, people smell it.
Yes.
They smell when you're weak. They test you.
Yes.
They want to see if you're going to allow this gun to be stolen from an army base, if you allow this land to be taken, if you allow another hill to be taken over. We have to be tougher.
Yes.
Benjamin Netanyahu, you're a great man. You will be remembered as a great man.
Bravo.
But hemming and hawing, being somewhere in the middle, somehow not being totally assertive, is just going to allow for Arab takeover. And that's what we're afraid of, that when we talk about God forbid, a two-state solution, what it means is they'll keep on creeping. The left always says there's creeping annexation. But the truth is, there's a creeping land takeover by the Arabs in Judea and Samaria, in the Negev, in the Galil, that has to be stopped.
Right.
Now, speaking of Arabs, I'd like to say a few words to our Arab neighbors, and with this I'll finish. Dear Arab neighbors and friends, it's time to end the 100 Years' War. It's time to end that war. Your people want and need progress. Your war against Israel has actually been a war on Allah's will. You have been fighting against the will of Allah. It's obvious. Shuf, look with your own eyes. You'll see it. Look at this land and how it's flourishing. And look at your countries. Your civilization is in the toilet. Why? Because of your hate. Your hate against one another and your hate against Israel. It has turned, instead of barakah, instead of bracha or blessing, it's turned into a curse. Your lands are cursed because of your hate. It's time to end the 100 years war.
Bravo, bravo.
If you begin to bless Israel,
Okay.
drop your support of the so-called Palestine in our land. Drop your claims to the land of Israel.
Bravo.
You and this region will be blessed. We are looking forward to regional cooperation and harmony with you. Once you put down your claims to the land of Israel and your efforts to destroy us. I want to finish up with some blessings. I want to bless in the name of the God of Israel, the United States of America, in their time of pain and division. That country is suffering tremendously, and we send a blessing from Yerushalayim, from Jerusalem, for healing of that country.
Amen.
We bless our regional cousins, the Arabs, to reject hate and embrace physical and spiritual prosperity through accepting the Jewish people in the land of Israel, your cousins, and accepting Allah's will. And finally, may the God of Israel bless the leaders of Israel with ending this atmosphere of ambivalence and instead embrace courage and clarity and assert Israeli sovereignty now. Thank you very much, Nadia. Thank you very much, Yehudit. Thank you to Women in Green and the Sovereignty Movement.